Is Lagos traffic curable?
Investments, funds are put out for investments. They must go into the investment phase.
Today, democracy in Nigeria has become largely transactional.
This is Patitos Gang, and we've come knowing that just a couple of days ago, many like us, citizens like us, Nigerians with blood running their veins, were attacked as they tried to sleep and were killed and maimed. In states like Kaduna State, in Plateau State, in Zamfara State, this is now the norm. The wild, wild wests of the American frontiers didn't even get as ugly as this. And then we get strong men who say they can take care of this. And we all rallied. I mean, if there was any reason to try and elect somebody like General Buhari, who most people knew had deficiencies, was perchance that he would fix corruption and fix insecurity. On both counts, we had a big fall like Humpty Dumpty, failed very badly. And now, it just seems to get worse, the insecurity situation. I have a small problem with it all. In an age where from satellite you can pick up the name tag of a soldier in the Gulf, we can't find technology to spot people just moving in the bush. There's something really wrong with this. So, wiser people than me will tell us today why insecurity persists. It persists such that it has affected food security, and we're hungry and we're angry in Nigeria. Why does insecurity persist? Wefideli, you look like a warlord. Tell us, how does this manage to happen that we cannot secure ourselves? We can't allow our people to go to the farms because, hey, we don't know what they will meet. What is it?
Pato, you alluded to some expectations of Muhammad Buhari. We seem to forget the mentality of the average person from his own zone. If we recall in 1960, I'm sure you were old enough, the Parrot newspaper publication. Can we recall what it said? Sadnara of Sokoto, that this new nation called Nigeria is the estate of our great-grandfather Othman Danfodio. He made reference to using the Middle Belt people as willing tools, conquered territory, and the southern people as willing tools rather, and never allow them to have control over their destiny. That is not the exact quote, but that's the meaning. Sadnara of Sokoto was the second Mahdi of the Fulani Caliphate. The first was Othman Danfodio. The third was Muhammad Buhari. When you see people with the mindset of conquest, they don't listen. When Buhari came to power, his first proclamation was to hand in your guns. We in the southern part stupidly gathered our people and made sure they handed in their guns. And he unleashed terror on us. And from then on till date, if it's not herders, it's Mieti Allah. If it's not Mieti Allah, it's Boko Haram. There's a mindset that Nigeria belongs to the Fulani and they must conquer and rule. You alluded also to the fact that technology has made it possible for us to identify a pin in the bush. And yet somebody is parading himself as a negotiator between bandits and terrorists and the government. I'm mentioning Gumi, Sheikh Gumi or whatever they call him. Why is he still working free? There's another man who was made a minister, who was a negotiator for ISWAP and Boko Haram, or intervener with the Arabian states. He became a minister. There is no government willpower to check these things and make sure that we move into the bush and conquer them. If you ask me, it is not going to be a difficult thing, but it has to be the willpower. Maybe I end there until somebody else speaks, because we can do it and we are ready to do it.
So, you look like MI5.
I better watch what I say.
If he is a warlord, you may be MI5. So please interrogate.
Well, let's use some kind of intelligence instead of information gathering to deal with it. If what Chief says, that the Northerners or the Northern elite are born conquerors, I think they're failed conquerors now because they're not able, even their own territory is being conquered outside them. I think the current security situation in Nigeria speaks to what I call the audacity of criminals, the indolence of leaders, and perhaps the numbness of people. We look at that tripod. The criminals, I call them criminals, but they're actually terrorists. And I use the word terrorist in its real etymological sense because they drive terror into us to stop our activities, to impede us from loving, trading, studying, and working, we need to look at it that way. The people who terrorize you want to take away your life from you. So they are enemies. The audacity in doing it the same way in the same places and scaling up is what we should be considering. The inability of government at a time where President Patitomi talks about using satellite to see people's badge in other lands. But in the same country, students insulted the wife of the president and they were able to identify that person. So it tells you where technology wants to be applied, it can be applied. Where intelligence wants to be applied, it can be applied. And that speaks to the indolence of our leaders. And I think, shame on them. Shame on everybody who has been charged, who's been paid to take care of security and is failing. We really need to say it, you're failing. There's no point talking about their efforts, saying they are trying this, because otherwise, somebody should have said in Nigeria, never again would they abduct school children or women again. But I also think our citizens, we the people, are getting used to bad things. It doesn't shock us anymore. Until we decide to understand that every child kidnapped is my child. Everybody killed is a part of me. Anywhere in Nigeria, we're not going to get out of it.
Okay, I'm going to buttress your point concerning the citizen. I had an experience last year in Abeokuta on illegal migration. Then when I got there, what I noticed there is our community people do a lot of harm to themselves, thinking it's not going to affect them, but it's doing a lot of effect on them. Like we know a lot of people come into your neighborhood and you don't know them. Gone are the days where you know almost every person around your neighborhood, you know them, you know their background. But these days, people go into your neighborhood, they know you, they study you, they know the environment where before they start kidnapping. And most of it is poverty. Poverty is part of it. Where I had some of the victims told me a little bit story that someone said, I'm going to take you abroad, I'm going to get you visa, I'm going to do everything for you. Just go there, then you repay me back instrumentally. And they were being brainwashed to do that. And after that, they got their passports and they got traveled. As it said, they were in the plane, I think it landed them in Kano, and that was the end. They didn't know anything until they got to Kano and they saw this in the bus. So in the bus, we're filled with so many people where they drop them. If the bus is not moving too fast, they drop you, they queue instantly. Before you go into the bush, they take through that route. This Sambisa forest is where they take. And this is not stopping, it's never ending, because that's the normal route they take before they go into the deserts. So when they go there, they just share their, one said, we were there that a lot of, in fact, people they were adopted like 14, 15. You can't tell me they are going there to travel, but they want to go for a greener pasture. Some are being adopted on the road. And people fail to listen. there is a park for motor vehicle, go there and board the bus. But a lot of them will stand on the road, finding cheaper ride, and also some of them are victims of accidents.
But doesn't it speak to the failure of policing? You know, in many countries of the world, it is not the police that are the big instruments of ensuring law and order. In Britain, for example, it's the old woman sitting at her window, seeing everything, noticing that this person has never passed around this neighborhood, and calling somebody, the police, and they will come and watch. In California, you know, I have a cousin who has a home in Beverly Hills. You drive into that neighborhood, they don't know you. Within minutes, a police vehicle is following you. They don't, your freedom is there, they won't, but they'll just be following you until you leave the neighborhood. Now, this challenge of policing is now being hopefully addressed by the so-called allowing state police, something long overdue. But it is more than just glib talk about a second tier of government managing policing. Policing is something that should go all the way to the community. We talked about community policing for forever. Those local vigilantes, people who know everybody in the neighborhood, such that anybody that is strange passes by, an alarm is raised. That's what policing is about. Women are a very important part of policing because they see everything. And women are now some of the worst victims of the insecurity. How can women organize, for example, to help reduce the porous society that everybody comes and goes with ease, so that there's information available on people in the community to prevent their being victims of insecurity?
And so I think the older ones need to re-enlighten the younger ones. We need to re-enlighten them about their security and having self-worth in their own society. I feel like most of us, we want just greener pasture and we want to have things quickly done. And in those olden days, things are not done. Things are done appropriately. But now we, the young ones, want to have everything done. You just want to have everything done so quickly.
Talking about
into wrong hands.
Talking about olden days, and we must go for a break in a second. It's a story I've told several times on Patitos Gang. It's a family friend of ours, the Lawal Sholarins, in their place in Shagamu back in the 50s. A neighbor suddenly found that nobody was talking to them. Anywhere they went, people moved away. They were wondering, what have we done? And somewhere somebody opened his mouth and said, I said, what? Elewo or what? It turned out that one night around 5 a.m., a policeman was seen at their door. They had to start explaining. Our cousin was a policeman in Kano, was passing. His truck came late and he knocked on the door. But for more than 1 month, nobody in the community, they were ostracized because a policeman was seen on their door. So I think that we need to return to those kinds of values of watching out for the community. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about this terrible scourge of insecurity. This is Patitos Gang, and we'll be right back. We are back. This is Patitos Gang, and we'll be talking about the security situation in the country. The so-called insecurity situation has really created a whole culture of fear. There are places where fear has paralyzed the communities. mean, if you go to north central Nigeria, some parts of Plateau State, or most of it, parts of Zamfara State, people can't organize their lives. They can't produce. They are unsure of who to trust. And when you lack that, society doesn't make progress. What could we be doing to reclaim those kinds of communities that have lost a sense of community because of the insecurity situation? And how do we deal with foreign interlopers who have added to this? We know that there are problems related to struggle for land, want to take some people's land away, but there are also problems that have arisen because foreign gangsters are trying to access mineral deposits in those communities. How can we begin to rework the psyche of those people to believe that they can take back their society and that they can live normal again?
Well, I think the first thing to understand is that so far so bad. You know, people need to do without shame or embarrassment or wanting to point fingers. I think leaders, governors, presidents, security operatives need to say we've not succeeded so far, because security is not something of a bit. It's not effort. It's either secure or it is not secure. As long as it's not secure, we need to understand and say, because so far so bad, let us change the way we're doing it. Changing the way we're doing it will now require a holistic approach that links together a lot of forces. So we divide it into two. There's on one side the socio-economic intervention, in which people have to understand that it is good to be good. So that if you go to school, you get rewarded for going to school. If you work, if you help the police intelligence you were talking about, you see the benefit of it and you discover the sense of knowing that this is our community, and the police becomes friendlier and more helpful. That is on one side. But on the other side, we also need to know that the people trying to kill us are our enemies, and when we get them, we should deal with them very ferociously. So in a way, we need to create a society where it is bad to be bad, where people see that if I go and attack, they're going to deal with me in a very bad way. So we need to put fear in them. Overall, beyond security, there's a situation in Nigeria which is like what we see on our roads. It seems more rewarding to be bad than good in Nigeria. And I want viewers to think about it. When you drive, when I drive, I try to do my best to stay on the right lane, not to cross people. Everybody keeps going past me because that is what the society incentivizes them to do. So, in security as well, citizens, people need to know that following the right path is the good thing, because we put fear on those who do bad. To be able to put fear on those who do bad, we need to go back to remember something fundamental, that the whole essence of a state, it is ability to deploy superior and legitimate force. That is what makes a state. Otherwise, anybody can do. After all, we buy diesel for our generators, we use our borehole. The one thing we cannot do is ability to deploy superior and legitimate force. And the state needs to deploy that. Criminals, terrorists use guns. We don't make a lot of guns in Nigeria, so they're imported to the country. Let us start from the customs. They take money. This money can be traced. Let us use finance. They are sheltered in places. Let us look at where they're sheltered. And when we get any one of them, let it not be a story of his life is dead, he's sitting in a politician's house. Straight to jail if they can get there alive. Otherwise, let them die.
Yeah, definitely they need to get very aggressive in dealing with it. But there's also a need for social education that can get the community to recognize the real damage of the state of insecurity that we have here. A moral consciousness that make people sensitive to the fact that these people want the end of our society, and therefore we must contain them. But I am curious about the idea of incentivizing, and I wonder if conditional cash transfers can actually be used to incentivize people to end insecurity. For example, if you pointed out the agents of insecurity in the community, maybe you get so much of this or that. Because the whole idea of conditional cash transfers is to create the ability to overcome certain kinds of conditions. It doesn't have to follow Bossa Familia, like in Latin America. Your own circumstance should determine how you use conditional cash transfers to create a better society. I'm really curious about that, but anyway, other perspectives.
I think that will create a serious problem in Nigeria, given the fact that most of us are hungry. People will use it to expose or attack their
neighbors,
perceived
enemies.
It's not going to work.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying? It is ideal, but here in Nigeria, it is not practicable. I still go back to the issue of government's desire to end this thing. It's not rocket science.
I think government is not capable.
Precisely. No, not that they're not capable. They are willing.
I don't think they're willing. I think they're capable.
Bro, Tony, the government, you just mentioned when somebody wrote something about Buhari's wife. Within seconds, he was traced.
You mentioned that name, not me, but go ahead.
Tracing Buhari's wife? No. Yeah, but I mentioned that Buhari is a Mahdi.
Okay.
And we should have contained him, and he should be brought to book. Today, I believe he should be in the International Court of Justice. I'm saying it openly. He belongs there. But I'm saying basically that if there's a will to contain these people, the Nigerian government has the capacity, as evidenced by the capture of this man who just said
Student, the boy.
a student who said this woman has gotten fat, feeding from our commonwealth. They found him. So I don't see why, I repeat, people like Gumi should be walking free in this country. He knows where the terrorists are. He negotiates. He's telling us that they deserve honor. And you're telling people in the southeast and south where I come from to hand in their guns. I'm asking them to arm themselves and defend themselves. That is the only language that will solve the problem in this country. Get the gun whichever way you can. If these people in the northeast and northwest can get guns to come and intimidate us in this, if we allow this thing to happen, to continue, in the next 5-6 years, you may not be able to drive on the slow lane.
That was true.
Yes. So I'm saying,
And I know he always liked the fast lane. So he will move permanently to the fast lane.
So-
Just like in Nigeria, there's no fast lane anymore.
if they know. Now, listen, there was a case of a general who arrested a perpetrator in Plateau State. I'm sure you know about it. Under Buhari's tenure, again, I mentioned that man. Yes. And when he was instructed from Abuja, in quote, to release the so-called terrorist, and he refused, he was relieved of his duty. It tells you the mindset of the government. So if the government can do this, that means they don't want to end this thing. So I begin to check.
But I think they need to devise new method. And I want to be on record that I agree with the condition of transfer of cash to fight terrorism. You see, because the whole point is this. So when in a battle, if side A, if people feel that it is more beneficial to support side A, they will support it. If the government throw all it has, ammunition and cash to people, so that the government has more supporters than people, I think it can work. There's a fear, no doubt, of people using that method to fight their own.
Which government,
enemies.
Prof?
Well, let's talk ideal, then go to reality. But if once you admit that, just by saying somebody is a criminal, doesn't mean the person is going to be arrested or killed. I mean, the person will be investigated. I think it's a good idea. We shouldn't discard it that way. Conditional transfer for people to be intelligence gathering. Yes.
Prof,
Whistleblowing.
I'll tell you a story. Well, it's a joke anyway. About the man. Sorry, madam.
No.
About the man who was running away from supposed aggravation somewhere.
Yeah.
And they said, "Why are you running?" He said, "They're busy castrating. I mean, whatever it was, castrating everybody who is a non-conformist."
Yeah.
He said, "But you're a conformist." They castrate you before they ask questions. You do not. These people do not think.
Well,
The government does not think. The government is fixated on
In a way.
grabbing. You mentioned it earlier on. They just want to grab. People who don't think about you and I as their subjects to make laws. Well, anyway, we'll talk about democracy at some future date. But for now, the issue of security should be defend yourselves.
Yeah.
If you are coming to my territory and you know that I'm going to blow your goddamn head off, you'll be careful.
Okay, I'm going back to Mr. Platt's words on everybody needs to be on lookout. About January this year, we noticed a lot of students secondary students are back into cultism on the island, and it's on the highways. Then most of them will leave with school uniform. They don't go into the school. They go under the field, do whatever, smoke and all. Then we detect that we have to go to we have to be on the street first to check. Then we're on the street. We notice students goes into the school around 10:30, and we had to go to the school, address them first. Then we went back to our local government. We met with the local government chairman and some of the police in charge of our community, that this is what is happening with our students. And even when we search some of the school bags, it's not even books anymore. These are weapons in the bag.
Wow.
So if we are having insecurity in Nigeria and the school is not even safe for our children to read anymore, then it's becoming very, very alarming.
Absolutely.
So we had to do a disciplinary committee with people volunteer in the community to monitor whoever we picked around 8 o'clock or 8:30 that you're not in school. You'll be sent to family support unit and the police station. If it's really beyond their power, you'll be sent to Keja. They need to reorientate you and see what is really, really wrong. Because now when we talk to some people and we ask them who their role model is, they mention some names and I can't even mention it. So that means we are really, really going.
It goes back to the point I make all the time about culture matters.
Culture.
Values shape human progress, is no question. And that's why leaders matter, because leaders set the tone of culture. If the biggest role models are motopark organizers in our country, then we're all going to be acting like motoparks. Whatever the culture of motopark is.
President is the motopark.
Well, let's,
No, let me go back to what Prof said. Take Anambra State, for instance. Anambra people do not hand over terrorists to the police anymore. Especially the headers. They deal with them decisively. But when you hand them over to the police, within hours they're back into the system, they're released. Because there's information. In fact, when you watch the way they react when they are being interviewed by the police, it's like arrogance. This arrogance has to be checked. Nobody has monopoly of violence, and nobody is a slave in this country. Those people must be made to understand that the country belongs to everybody else.
Yeah, but you see, it's a danger that people are missing. That our country is moving towards a point where some people think that they have the right to enslave others.
But that's what
That
is
is
causing
the
the problem.
reality. And this is, if this is not checked, if the mindset is allowed to fester, we're in serious
problem.
trouble.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, it's time to go. Fortunately, this is a subject that we can speak to for a very, very long time. There is no question that insecurity is become a very, very debilitative problem for Nigeria's progress. It's affecting food security, as I said earlier. It's affecting even the politics. I mean, how can you have elections when people are not sure that they are safe going to vote? It's affecting the general economic situation in the country, because investors are looking and saying, why am I here? It's less of a risk across the border. So the urgency of now is really the urgency of checking insecurity with everything that we can manage to throw at it. It will include citizen action, who must create more citizens, who must move people away from this idiot category, past the tribal category, up to citizenship, who see a shared humanity with others. Government has its role, civil society has its role, even the private sector has an important role in checking insecurity. It's for the common good, so let's act that way. We'll see you next week. This has been Patitos Gang.